It said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, as you read further in scriptures, you are going to discover that that is not the oldest beginning. There are beginnings that are older than the beginning of Genesis. The beginning of Genesis is the reference point where the enterprise of creation began. But there are realities that are older than creation. And you get to discover as you read the Bible. Because if you come to John chapter 1 verse 1, you are going to find another beginning. The Bible said that which was from the beginning. So there is a beginning where an activity called creation began. And there's another beginning that is a person. In the beginning, creation started, but there was one which was from before creation started. And then if you go to 1 John chapter 1 verse 1, you will see another beginning. John was writing and he said, that which was from the beginning, which we heard, which we looked upon, and which we handled. So there's a beginning of creation, there's a beginning of the word, and there's a beginning where we heard about a personality. And then there's another beginning where laws were given from. They asked him at the resurrection, whose wife will she be? Because there was a lady that was married to 7 men and they all died. And he said, in the beginning it was not so. So there is a beginning where laws are given. There was a beginning where creation began. There was a beginning where the message of God, the statements, the tokens about God were communicated. And there was a beginning where God himself was the reference. But one constant you are going to find in all of this beginning is that either he spoke about God or God was doing something. That means he is actually the original reference of reality. He is more significant than time and he's more significant than activities. Because before time and activities began, he was. So even if there was no creation, God is. Even if there was no time, God is. So God is beyond creation and beyond activities. And so one thing you are going to now discover on account of this is the fact that everything that was created for him. He predates creation. But creation was put in place for him. That's why the elders in heaven, when they were worshiping in Revelations 4:11, they fell on their faces and they cried, holy, holy, holy is the Lord. And they made a statement. And the statement they made was that all things was made for thy pleasure. Creation God could not have existed for creation because God is older than creation. He created creation. So creation has to find meaning based on its connection to God. And so if creation does not find connectivity with God, creation will lose meaning. So the meaning of creation is not in itself. The meaning of creation is the relevance it holds in its connectivity with God. This is the vital understanding that we must have in order for our lives to have meaning beyond time. Because if you don't have this understanding while you are here, you may discover that you can think. You know, when a child is growing, the child begins to discover that he has faculties. He can think. Somebody, you call a name, the child repeats the name. So he starts calling daddy, daddy. He graduates to mommy. He starts hearing things like come. So the child is discovering that I can think. After a while, the child starts discovering that he has feelings. He can be angry. He likes some things. He's attracted to some persons. If you are not careful, that discovery will now make you think that you exist for yourself. But the ancient ones in Zion, who had understanding, by reason of their interaction with God, came to a conclusion. They said, all things were created for thy pleasure. Because we know that there was a civilization that existed where there was no creation, yet you were. Whatever it is that made creation to become relevant must have been connected to you. If it was not connected to you, it wouldn't have had significance. And so creation finds meaning to the degree of its connectivity to God. Now, if that is the case, then you must therefore understand that God has an agenda in creation. If creation does not just exist but exists for God, then God has an agenda in creation. And the summary of the agenda God has in creation is called kingdom. Because when we study God deep, we will discover eventually that he is not just divine, he is king. So this God we serve is a king. It's on the strength of his kingship that he has laws. So one thing you are going to find out is that as you are growing up, you will discover that there is a moral law in you. That even without having connection to people, when evil happens, you hate evil. You won't know who told you, but there is something in you that fights evil. And there is something in you that appreciates good. So you now realize that something was injected in you without you being informed. That there was a moral law planted on your inside without consulting you that makes you support good and hate evil. That is to let you know that there was a government already at work before you matured, before you became wise. And that government already tampered with your constitution. That government already tampered with your mindset, tampered with your mentality, tampered with your brain, tampered with your faculties. And it tampered with it so deep that it already influences how you see things and how you act when things happen. Because the one who instituted that government has an agenda. Can we celebrate Pastor Imabong Odutola? I want to journey in the word, so I got... And Dr. Michael Odutola, the lead pastors of the Light and Grace Ministries. These are people with a very strong apostolic mandate, and you can see that they are moving from territories to territories to establish God's counsel and ordination. Thank you for your labors. God bless you richly. Always an honor. Glory to God. So God has a government. God has an agenda. And you have been enrolled as a citizen of that kingdom. And so one thing you will do for yourself is to find out what that kingdom is about. Because you will find meaning to the degree that you understand that kingdom and align to it. Imagine if I came to Australia and I see somebody and I start greeting them in my native dialect. Now, this language I'm speaking is not my language. But if I will have meaning here, I will have to adopt it. Where I come from, we speak a language called Idoma. If I see you, I would have said, Abole. Abole means, how are you doing? But if I stand here and I say, Abole, everybody will be like, who is this? Which zoo are you from? So, in order for me to gain here, what I will do is that I will learn the language you speak. Because if I don't, my enterprise here will be fruitless. Now, when you come here, you discover that people wear clothes. Now, if I want to be part of this civilization, I will have to look for clothes and wear. Because if I walked in here naked, people would like, who is this? Get the police quick. I will be good for a place called the mental institution. They will say something, this one can't fit in. He can't fit in. Now, I didn't say anything. I just came without clothes. Well, maybe I'm even excited. I want to join the worship. You say, no. Although it's called worship, but you need to go to a mental institution first. Let's be sure that you are okay. You know, now, these things are non-negotiable. For you to be part of a civilization, you need to know how that civilization works. And if you align with the protocols, then you can now find meaning. God has an agenda. He created the world before we came. In fact, we became part of the creation. And so for us to be relevant in this equation, we must understand how it works. And the first thing you need to understand is that this realm was created. It didn't happen. The story of the Big Bang is a lie. They can't substantiate it. Now, scientists struggle, but they have a problem. And one of the problems they have is that the law of entropy insists that chaos cannot create order. It's impossible for chaos to resort to order. You can't carry a block of cement and break it, and then when it scatters, then it becomes a building. No. You don't create order from chaos. So that law negates the Big Bang. It can't happen. And then if you want to subscribe to the law of evolution, even Darwin himself knows that what he said cannot be verified. Because before you tell me about how life transits from one level to another, from one complexity to another, let's begin with, how did life come? So you can't explain how life came. How can you now tell me that a simple cell became a complex cell? No. Before we talk about the transition, how did it come? So a man who doesn't know how life comes cannot tell me how life transits. But you see, when you read your Bible, you are going to discover that order was explained. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And even when chaos came on account of judgment, he said God came back and God said, let there be light. There was light. He established order. He said the trees that are growing today is not coincidence. He planted the trees and he put the seed inside the tree so that the tree can produce seed, and the seed can fall and germinate and become tree. He created a cycle so you can explain it. This order can be explained. And then when you say, how did life come? He said God breathed into the nostrils of the man he formed and he became a living soul. So he answers every critical question of creation to let you know that what you are inside is not an accident. Your eye alone is too complex for Big Bang to produce it. Your eye. The complexity of your eye is too advanced for Big Bang. Big Bang can't account for your eyes. Do you know how many million neurons you have in your brain? Big Bang could not have curated. How can matter suddenly have consciousness? How can matter have morality? How can a stone suddenly break? Gases break, and gas is no good and evil. No. Rationality, consciousness is not part of those possibilities. So, the only verifiable claim as to how this realm appeared is that there was an intelligent designer. Whatever you choose to call that designer, call him, but we call him God. Now, as you study deeper in scriptures, you are now going to find out that this God who created this realm wanted his government to find expression. So when he recreated the earth in Genesis chapter 1, he put the man there and he gave him laws. So what you are doing here is a very organized operation to mirror certain possibilities. This is why we call it a kingdom, because he's a king and he has an interest in advancing an agenda that is governed by specific laws. So the reason he brought the man into the equation is for the man to be his representative in establishing that kingdom. So the value of a man is tied to the degree of his relevance in that agenda. The day the man stops participating in that kingdom, he will become like another animal, because he was created to represent God in that kingdom. And when you study that kingdom critically, aside the fact that God is king and man is the representative of God, we discover that that kingdom has 4 major requirements for participation. And I told you yesterday, the first requirement is that you must have the life of the king. Because the king is not importing aliens to become citizens of his kingdom. He is giving birth to the citizens of that kingdom. That's why the first man he created, the Bible said he breathed the breath of life into him, and the man became a living soul. So it took life for the man to come into that kingdom. Genesis 2:7, he formed him from the dust of the ground and he breathed life into his nostril. The moment life entered him, he became worthy of participating in that kingdom. When man fell and died, there was no way kingdom could continue. So the project of kingdom was halted. God had to come back in another form This time around, he came in the likeness of a man,